over the,
Jesus, someone died.
were you going over the no parking on North Grand, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can do that.
Citizens or public comments? Seeing none, welcome everybody. Consideration and approval of the agenda.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Agenda is approved as submitted. Consideration and approval of the minutes of the November 7 and November 9 meetings.
Second.
Any further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
The minutes of the November 7 and November 9 meetings are approved. Consideration of approval of the consent calendar. Any discussion or questions?
So moved.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
The consent calendar is approved as submitted. Business of the mayor. I did attend a meeting in Jefferson, Iowa, of all places, last week, having to do with the rural, it's called the Rural Summit. The concern is that we'll call them lesser populated areas within the state, and this was a fair amount of the state, did attend and worked on trying to find ways to enhance programs for the rural portions of the state. So it was pretty well attended, about 300 people, and some interesting things were discussed, and hopefully we'll try and develop a little bit more of an agenda that has to do specifically with the rural parts of the state. Nothing definitive came out of the meeting, but nevertheless, it was a good meeting. Next up, public hearing on 2017 housing rehab grant. Open the hearing. Affidavit. Do we have the affidavit of publication?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any written comments or objections?
None, Your Honor.
Oral comments or objections?
Your Honor, I'd like to make several comments, please.
Please step forward and identify yourself.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Steve Wendt from Nyakog, North Iowa Area Council of Governments, and this public hearing is being held to provide information on the City of Charles City's proposed rehabilitation grant to the Iowa Economic Development Authority that would fund an owner-occupied housing rehabilitation program. And according to the grant requirements, there are certain certain comments that have to be made during this public hearing, and I will make those comments on behalf of the City of Charles City. The reason being that Nyakog is assisting the city in writing the grant application, and will submit the grant application to IEDA when we get the grant ready to go here. In order to make sure that we do cover the required comments, I put together a written presentation. You should have that in your packets. First page, public hearing, CDBG housing rehabilitation grant application, and Heidi has passed that around to members of the audience. So if you'll turn to page 2, I will quickly read through these comments, and after doing so, we will met the requirements for the CDBG public hearing. Beginning at Roman numeral number 1, this public hearing is in regard to the City of Charles City's proposal to submit a grant application to the Iowa Economic Development Authority that would assist in funding a housing rehabilitation program. This grant is federally funded CDBG money allocated to the state of Iowa by the U.S. Department of HUD, so federal rules and regulations must be followed. The city is requesting funds to rehabilitate 6 owner-occupied structures in a target area of the community. And if you'll turn to the following page, the target area is outlined on that map. As you can see, it's approximately a 20 square block area just east of downtown. It's bounded on the west by Grand Avenue and on the east by East Street. Heidi from Charles City Housing counts 219 single-family homes in the target area. There are 17 vacancies, so 202 occupied housing units, 202 occupied or households. So that is the selected target area for this year's proposed grant application. If you turn back to page 2, Roman numeral number 2, it is also noted that the total household income of the homes to be rehabilitated cannot exceed 80% of the area median household income level for Floyd County as established by HUD. In other words, all the federal funds will benefit persons of low and moderate income LMI households. These income limits are based on family size and are shown on an LMI income survey that was distributed to all households in the target area. So if you turn to page 4, you'll see that survey that was distributed. Halfway down it shows the income eligibility limits. For example, if you're a 3-person household in the target area and your income is below $45,600, you will qualify as an LMI resident, and at least income-wise you will qualify for the grant funds. In regard to this survey, Heidi from Charles City Housing should be recognized for her efforts. She made an attempt to contact all 202 households, and as a result, 48 households responded saying that they were not only LMI, low to moderate income residents, but they were also owner-occupied residents, and they were interested in applying for grant funds if the grant is awarded by IEDA. So 48, and that is a good number. And then 48 of those applicants completed, not 48, but 11, or 15 completed full applications, and 11 were income qualified and ready to go. Again, we are applying for 6 homes, so we already have 11 applications in waiting. So so this shows great interest, great need, and of course great readiness with those applications ready to go. So we will score very highly, or the city will score very highly in regard to the income survey. So once again, I want to thank Heidi for getting those surveys out in the target area. If you turn back to page 2, Roman numeral number 3, the total cost of the 6-home rehabilitation program is estimated to be $232,500. The City of Charles City will provide local matching funds of $21,900. Therefore, the amount of the Housing Fund grant request will be $210,600. So if you turn to page 5, you'll see the budget that will be submitted with the grant application. As far as the IEDA grant funds, not IDED, Iowa Economic Development Authority, the most important part of the grant funds will be the rehabilitation hard cost. We're budgeting the maximum amount allowed in the program, which is $24,990 per home rehab. And then we have the various other budget items as required by the CDBG program, totaling $210,600. More importantly, looking down at the city funds, total local match is $21,900, of which $6,000 is a cash local match. The remaining amount is what we call in-kind or in-house contribution. This is in regard to the technical services. I mentioned the on-site technical services staff. That would be 2 city departments. Again, the 2 departments that were providing technical services will be the Charles City Housing, Heidi and her staff, and then the Charles City Code Enforcement Department. Between those 2 departments, they will handle the technical service administration, which is the on-site administration, doing the physical inspections, writing up the project specs, contractor supervision. So that will be done in-house, and that is the greater part of the local match. So again, $6,000 cash local match, and the remainder in kind. So our total program cost $232,500. So if you turn back to page 2 one more time, please. Roman numeral number 4, the need for housing rehabilitation funds in the proposed target area was most recently identified in conjunction with the city's updated City of Charles City Comprehensive Housing Needs Assessment. Research in regard to the updated HNA identified 5 neighborhoods within the community where rehabilitation is needed and resulted good impact is apparent. This includes the selected target area for this 2017 grant application, where very few of the homes were rehabbed in any previous recent rehabilitation programs implemented by the city between 1990 and 2008. A windshield survey completed by the city in June of 2016 further confirmed the need for rehabilitation assistance in the target area, which again includes many homes that have never had the opportunity to participate in the city's previous rehab programs. Therefore, on the basis of need, the number of ready and willing applicants, and overall project impact, the proposed target area was selected. The grant that the city is considering tonight, if submitted and awarded, will be yet another phase in the City of Charles City's efforts to provide safe and affordable housing in the community by way of owner-occupied rehabilitation programs. As mentioned in the above paragraph, the city has implemented several housing and rehabilitation grant programs since the early 1990s, the latest being the 2012 City of Charles City Rehabilitation Program, which provided assistance to homeowners located in the Wildwood Park Restoration Area, a neighborhood south of Gilbert Street and adjacent to the east of Wildwood Park. All of these previous programs, while considered to be successful and having great impact, still left a sizable unmet need for safe, sound, and affordable housing in the community. No persons or businesses will be displaced as a result of the rehabilitation activities. The proposed rehabilitation work on each home will be done so as to comply with the IEDA housing quality standards. This can include, but is not limited to, new furnaces, new wiring, new siding, new shingles, repair of structural deficiencies, interior and exterior lead hazard reduction activity, radon mitigation, and the elimination of any other observed interior health safety defects. And finally, the grant is for program year 2017 and must be submitted by January 13th, 2017, which is the grant deadline at the IEDA. Now, those are all the comments that have to be made. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, that's all I have.
I take it we're sort of limited to this amount, right?
Beginning in, yes, in the past we have applied for 9 or 10 homes, but beginning last year, the maximum amount of homes that can be applied for initially are 6 homes. But if we show great progress, the term of the IEDA contract is 3 years. If we show good progress, if we can get those first 6 homes done, say in 2 years, well then we can submit a letter to IEDA, which may fund more money to do maybe 1 or 2 more projects. And plus our budget, usually in our budget, when we complete those 6 homes, we probably have enough money left in the original grant funds to do a 7th home. So I think we can do a 7th home without asking for more funds. But then if we do ask for more funds, we could do maybe 1 or 2 more. So we could be talking about 8 or 9. But yes, you're right. Originally, we can only apply for 6 homes. That's the new rule beginning last year. So, any other questions or comments?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
And thank you, Heidi, for your work on this.
Okay. Any other discussion or a motion to close the hearing?
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager. Friesman.
Aye.
Okay, the hearing is closed. Consideration of Resolution 86-16, selecting a provider of grant general administrative services subject to the award of grant funding through the CDBG Iowa Housing Fund Program.
Yes.
Discussion.
You skipped one there. Got to do 85-16.
Oh, I'm sorry. Consideration of Resolution 85-16 approving an application for a Housing Fund Community Development Block Grant administered by the Iowa Economic Development Authority, IEDA, for an owner-occupied housing and rehabilitation program. Discussion.
Second.
Clerk, call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager. Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 85-16 is approved. Then Resolution 86-16, which I just got through reading, selecting a provider, etc. Discussion.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager. Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Okay, Resolution 86-16 is approved. Consideration of motion to adopt a community development housing needs assessment. Discussion.
I would like to provide some discussion on that. If you'll turn to the last page of my presentation, you'll see this is a one-page summary on community development and housing needs assessment, efforts along those lines that the city put together back in 2011. That was for the previous rehabilitation program, which, as I stated previously, was in the Wildwood restoration area. IDA has said that these community development and housing needs assessments are good for 2 years. This has been 5 years ago, so we have to revise or re-adopt what you see on this 2011 assessment. I've reviewed it. I think it's good. I do have one comment under the first section, item 3, where it says expanding mid-priced or affordable housing in the $50,000 to $70,000 range. Well, over the last 5 years, the sales price of single-family homes has increased. I'm recommending that we insert $60,000 to $80,000 in there now, rather than the $50,000 to $70,000. And then under Roman numeral number 3, item 8, develop a rental rehabilitation program and a rental housing code inspection program. Steve, I didn't get a chance to talk to you, but I know 5 years ago, anyway, the city was thinking about putting a rental housing code inspection program together. Has that been coming along, or is that in place now? Or
It's up and running.
it's up and running. That's what I thought. So we can revise item 8, just to say to continue to support and enforce the City of Charles City's current rental housing code inspection, with an eye on developing a rental rehabilitation program in the future. Trudy, do you want me to repeat that? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's fine. I got it.
Okay.
I got it taped. I'll catch it, so.
Okay. So those are my 2 recommendations. Again,
So you want those as amendments to?
yeah, amendments. That's my proposed amendments to the 2011 assessment. Again, this is a one-page document that must be uploaded with the grant application.
So move with
With the
amendments.
I would second that.
Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you
Proposal
for...
with amendments as approved.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Any other questions or comments about the program? Okay. Well, thanks for listening. Everybody have a good evening, and,
Thanks.
and
Have a good
we will,
Thanksgiving.
I guarantee you, we will write the strongest grant possible. So,
Good program.
due in January 13th. We got a while yet to perfect the grant. Thanks again, everybody.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Public hearing on Ordinance 1097, amending Section G, variations and exceptions of Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance, the City of Charles City, Iowa, by providing exception from subdivision requirements for the conveyance of a parcel to an adjoining owner for expansion of the owner's adjoining parcel. And open the hearing. Have the affidavit of publication.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any written comments or objections?
None, Your Honor.
Oral comments or objections?
Move to close the hearing. Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Okay, the hearing's closed. Consideration of the second reading of ordinance 1097. Discussion.
Mr. Rayholzer, he's in the process of splitting a single larger parcel into 3 separate parcels, and this is primarily in order to convey 2 of the parcels to abutting property owners. Subdividing property in the city does require compliance with the city's subdivision ordinance, and at this time the ordinance does not speak to plats of survey, and subdividing is regulated by the process of platting, which requires preliminary and final plats. Now, Ralph has drafted this ordinance amending Section G of Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance. This will allow the City Council, upon recommendation from the city's Planning and Zoning Commission, to waive platting requirements when a new parcel is created by a platted survey solely to convey to another abutting property and there's no further developments planned. Now, the waiver will require a restriction placed on the deeds of both the new parcel and the existing parcel, which will basically tie these two together, and the two cannot be conveyed separately from one another. Now, that deed restriction will terminate if the parcels are replatted and they do comply with the city's subdivision ordinance later. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission did meet on Monday, November 5th to consider this ordinance amendment, and they have sent a recommendation to the City Council to approve this ordinance. You did hold a first reading of the ordinance amendment at your November 5th meeting, and we just held a public hearing, and you're scheduled to act on the second reading at this meeting, and we would recommend approval of the second reading.
Further discussion?
So if the new owner of one of these parcels wanted to sell it to another adjoining landowner, they could do that through this same process then?
If it was going to another abutting property owner, then it would still comply with this new amendment.
Okay.
So basically, it allows for the sales of those parcels adjoiningly, but also prevents them from being sold off separately and becoming landlocked parcels.
That's exactly true, yes.
So move, Your Honor.
Second.
Further discussion? Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Ordinance 1097 is approved for second reading. Can we have a second reading, please?
Ordinance number 1097, an ordinance amending Section G, variations and exceptions of Section 3 of the subdivision ordinance of the City of Charles City, Iowa, by providing exception from subdivision requirements for the conveyance of a parcel to an adjoining owner for expansion of the owner's adjoining parcel.
Thank you. Now, we have a consideration of a motion to waive the third reading of ordinance 1097 and adopting the ordinance and publishing it. I would add to that material.
Because this is pretty much local and non-controversial, I would move for the third waiver of the third and final reading.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Starr.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
I said aye for you.
Yeah, thank you.
Think I need help.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
You voted twice.
Okay,
I gotta read the third reading?
no, we waived
No,
the
we
third
waived
reading.
it. You don't have to read it.
The third reading is waived,
Here anyway.
and the
You're
ordinance will be, is adopted and will be published. I believe that covers that one. Consideration of request for street closure for holiday lighted parade on December 2. Discussion.
Good evening. My name is Erica Wepperling, and I am the events coordinator for the Charles City Chamber and Community Revitalization. The annual Holiday Lighted Parade put on by the Community Revitalization is a fun celebration to help get the community into the holiday spirit. Business, group, commercial, personal, and nonprofit organization entries are all welcome at this free event. This year's theme is Hometown Old-Fashioned Christmas with an appearance from Santa. The Holiday Lighted Parade Committee requests the use of Jackson, Ferguson, Main Street, Riverside, and Blunt Street to be closed from 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. on Friday, December 2nd. The parts of the street to be closed are the first 4 blocks of North Jackson, Ferguson from North Jackson to North Main Street from Ferguson to Riverside Drive, Riverside Drive from North Main Street to North Jackson, and Blunt Street from North Ferguson to North Main Street. The parade lineup will start at 5:30 on Blunt Street by the Chamber office and TLC and head on North Jackson to Ferguson and over to North Main at 6 p.m. The parade will run around 30 minutes. Notification letters have been sent out to the residents that would be affected by the parade route. And the parade route is the exact same as last year.
I assume you've talked to the police?
Yes. I believe so, yeah.
Was that a
Sure,
yes?
do that. Yes, yes.
The chief is shaking his head behind you, so you're pretty safe.
Further discussion or questions?
I'd so move.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Okay. The street closures are approved.
Right, thank you.
Have fun, Erica. Thanks.
Consideration of Resolution 87-16, approving addition of no parking North Grand / North Main near Simply Essentials. Discussion.
Yeah, due to the recent location of Simply Essentials to the 901 Main Street location up there, and its construction and remodeling, we've developed a bit of a parking issue in and around the Dana Park area, that triangle green park between Main, Grand, and Lane Street. Parking on the Main Street side conflicts with the trucks coming and going, and parking on part of Grand Avenue makes the limited sight distances that much more challenging as you pull up to Main Street. So we've been working to address the parking situation. We've spoken with Simply Essentials to see how it might impact them, and they were supportive and also encouraged additional parking restrictions in and around that area. So what we've looked at, and as you see on your map there, is parking restriction on Main Street, and that would be both sides of Main Street, from essentially the railroad tracks, which is Lane Street, north approximately 1 block to the intersection of North Grand. There would be no parking on both sides of Main Street in this area. We've also proposed that we eliminate 3 parking stalls, or approximately 75 feet, from that north intersection south on Grand, to help with sight lines and the ability of pedestrians to cross in that area as well. Parking would remain on the remainder of that North Grand of Dana Park, and then would remain on Lane Street. But we would be looking to permanently prohibit it on the Main Street side, and then 3 stalls on North Grand.
Steve, will this interfere with any other businesses there? Have we talked
Well, I mean, we've never had any cars really parked there before until Simply Essentials came in and started remodeling. So nobody has ever used that area for parking. At least if they have, it's been very limited. So I don't think it's going to have any major impact. It might have some short-term impact on some adjacent businesses and properties due to on-street parking. But once Simply Essentials gets their full parking lot in place, that'll more than take care of the parking needs for their business.
I would so move.
Second.
Further discussion or questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Resolution 87-16 is approved. Consideration of Resolution 88-16, approving temporary waiver of parking lot requirement for Simply Essentials. Discussion.
Well, Simply Essentials, they plan to start processing chickens there at the 901 North Main Street plant. Now, the plant will initially open and with 1 shift, employing approximately 300 people, processing up to 330,000 chickens per week. And they do plan to double their production by adding a 2nd shift. Now, Simply Essentials, they own the plant. They're at 901 North Main, as well as property on the east side of North Grand and west of East Street, that large open area, which was a part of the White Farm complex. And Simply Essentials has identified a location for the employee parking, which will be right there at the corner of Lawler and North Grand. Now, Simply Essentials recently has submitted a request to waive certain off-street parking requirements, and this is in as laid out in the city's zoning ordinance. And what they've asked for is a temporary waiver until next August. And after they get the second shift in production, the company will have a better understanding of how many parking spaces they'll need to pave at that time. And in the meantime, the existing lot there, as part of the old, what was part of the old White Farm complex, it has a kind of a various surfacing. It's a seal coat with gravel and aggregate, but they do plan to delineate some parking stalls for the existing parking area in the interim period. Now, since the plant is currently under construction, we do concur with this waiver request. And since it's temporary, and at this time it's really too late in the year to get anything done, and by the time they get started in the spring, the August waiver request is really, it's very temporary. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission they met and discussed this waiver on November 7th. They also concur in the waiver request, and they're forwarding a recommendation to the council to accept and approve it. So we recommend approval of Resolution 88-16, approving the request to temporarily waive the parking requirements until August of 2017.
Discussion or further discussion?
It sounds realistic. I would move so.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Resolution 88-16 is approved. Consideration of Resolution 89-16, approving temporary waiver of parking lot requirement for Ungoy. Discussion.
Well, Ungoy Broadband, they're a internet service provider company, and they purchased and remodeled an existing building at 800 North Main Street. And they'll be using it for office area and warehouse space for their company. Now, the building has 4,600 square feet of office space and 2,300 square feet of warehouse space. And Ungoy Broadband has also indicated to us that there's potential that some of the space may be used in the future as a call center. Now, in accordance with the city's zoning ordinance, Ungoy Broadband has submitted a request to waive certain off-street parking requirements. Now, they're paving their waiver. They're requesting a 5-year temporary waiver. Their justification for the waiver is due to lack of funds for paving, and they also have said that their employees and customers can use on-street parking rather than the off-street parking lot. Now, the off-street parking lot, that's immediately north of the office building. It's currently fenced in, and it's an existing gravel area. Now, the Planning and Zoning Commission, they did meet on November 7th. They did discuss this request. However, the Commission did not send a recommendation for accepting the 5-year temporary waiver, but they did concur in supporting a 3-year temporary waiver for Ungoy. And that's what the Commission has forwarded to you. Now, staff, we cannot concur with the Commission's recommendation, since 3 years is, we feel, is an excessive time period to comply with the city's zoning requirements. And Brad and I, we did meet with Mr. Dan Moore with Ungoy, and Mr. Moore did indicate to us that they do want to comply with the zoning requirements of paving the parking. However, they just want to use this next year, 2017, to do that and to have it completed by the fall of next year. But we would not oppose a waiver temporarily delaying the requirements until September 2017. So we would recommend approval of Resolution 89-16, approving the request to temporarily waive the parking requirements until next September 2017.
John, when you say paving, it could be asphalt or paving, just hard surface, right?
Hard surface, yes, either
And they're
asphalt
going
or
to
concrete.
anticipate employing about how many people?
Well, they would need 15 parking spaces.
Okay. We'll have a better idea next summer where they're going to be on that.
Yeah, well, that's based on the area of the warehouse space and the office space.
I'd move for the 1 year or to the August date, whatever you said there.
September?
It's September 30th, right?
September
Yes,
30th? Okay.
September 30th.
Was your meeting with the owner of the business prior to the planning and zoning meeting or after that?
Prior to.
Okay, because I thought at the meeting, he was definitely not saying they were going to be ready to pave it within 1 year.
Yeah, we met with Dan Moore, is who Brad and I met with.
Okay, but the gentleman that night at the planning and zoning meeting, not sure who he was, but he was there and he was definitely not saying anything about being able to do that within 1 year. From the comments I remember that night.
That was the comments he made that night, yes.
Further discussion? The resolution as set up is for just until September 30th.
Yes.
A motion?
Any discussion?
Need a
further?
second.
Yep, we need a second. Keith, second, okay.
A second, okay.
Got a second, you bet.
Clerk will call the roll.
Hammond,
Aye.
Malero,
Aye.
Starr,
Aye.
Yeager,
Aye.
Friesman.
No.
Okay, resolution 89-16 is approved. Consideration of resolution 90-16, approving Woodchip Agreement with Norman Zimmerman. Discussion.
A couple of months ago, the city was approached by Norman Zimmerman in regard to our wood chips that we have out at our city brush dump. Mr. Zimmerman would like to obtain an amount of chips that he'd like to take and further process and use them to either sell or in a commercial application. As of right now, we have a growing pile of wood chips out at the dump. We estimate that we've got about 13,000 cubic yards of wood chips in that area, and each year we add about 5,000 cubic feet. A good portion of that's reused by the public, but still each year we're net gaining an amount. It keeps growing and growing. So we'd like to work out a license agreement, which we've developed here for you tonight, that would allocate 3,000 cubic yards of chips per year for a total of 3 years to Mr. Zimmerman. The plan is to designate a separate pile that the street department would pile up. Mr. Zimmerman would come out, he would grind the chips down on site, then he would then haul the chips off site to store them long term outside of city limits. We're not planning on taking any payment for this material. Currently, we don't have to do any type of DNR testing and various things that you need to do if you are looking to sell that type of material, so we don't feel that that's something we want to get into. So it would certainly be a benefit to us to see some of those chips go away, so we don't have to dispose of them by other means. So we think this is a good deal that would work out well for both parties. The agreement indemnifies the city from any issues arising out of either the grinding or the sale or ultimate use of the wood chips. We did have some initial concerns about the statewide wood ban, and if you're grinding something down smaller than 1 inch by 1 inch in size, that ban does not apply. So he could take those wood chips, grind them, and then take them anywhere within the state and really outside of the state as well. And that wood ban is then due to the emerald ash borer and concerns about that spreading. So that wouldn't be an issue either. Requires proof of insurance, and that he follow all rules and laws subject to the state and Iowa Department of Land Stewardship. So we would recommend approval of this license.
Further questions or discussion?
How long does Mr. Zimmerman have to get it off the city site when he grinds it down? I mean, there's nothing in the agreement that says how quick he's got to get it hauled out of there.
Well, he has to haul it as he grinds it. So as he grinds it, he takes it away.
Okay.
We will designate a pile of 3,000 cubic yards that he'll have basically 12 calendar months to make that pile disappear. But as soon as he grinds it, he takes it off site.
Okay, so there won't be any stored stuff sitting there
That is correct.
that he's done with. He's got to haul it the day he grinds it,
That's
basically.
the plan. Yep.
Okay.
One of the reasons that this agreement is going forward also is that we have an annual net gain on our woodpile in the event that by some odd situation that we are lacking wood chips, we have the ability to cancel this agreement.
That's right. Yeah, it's
I don't foresee that happening, but
that was a question I addressed early on. It was, well, what if we, for some reason, we don't have enough chips and we're not obligated to find any? But I think the chances are that amount will continue to grow because we're going to be cutting down more and more trees, I would suspect. So we'll probably have more and more wood chips out there to deal with. So
I'd so move.
second.
I have a discussion point.
Mm-hmm.
In part of this, we go back and forth between calling this cubic feet and cubic yards.
it's
Yeah,
cubic
that-
yards. The only place that says cubic feet is in my summary word.
Okay.
So I had a typo there.
So
but
we're
it's-
okay cubic yards all the way the rest of the way through it.
Yes.
Thank you.
Further discussion or questions? Clerk will call the roll.
Malero.
Aye.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Resolution 90-16 is approved. Consideration of Resolution 91-16, accepting 2015 intake modification project and approval of final payment. Discussion.
Well, CAM Excavating, they were the general contractor for the 2015 intake modification project. They've completed the construction of the project improvements in substantial compliance with the contract documents. Now, if you recall the 2015 intake modification project, this project made adjustments to storm sewer items that were constructed as part of the first permeable pavement project in 2010. As part of the 2010 project, stormwater was collected in areas at the intersections, in depressed areas behind the curb, and they were filled with large stones and allowed water to either percolate it back into the soil or directly into the storm sewer. And these rock areas were between the back curb and sidewalk. Well, this project removed those large rocks, and what we did, we put in more standard grate intakes at these locations, connecting to the storm sewer or directing the water back into the underlying rock base. The original cobblestone infiltration areas, they just didn't work out. They collected trash and debris and allowed weeds and other things to grow in there, so that's why we took those out. The project was completed about $8,000 under budget. The original contract price was $172,847.50, and the final cost to do the work was $164,939.05. So we would recommend approval of Resolution 91-16, accepting the project and authorizing the final payment to CAM Excavating.
Further discussion or questions?
If I recall right, John, this a couple of years ago, this was a dream from some far-fetched engineer how to handle it, and it didn't work out, and now we're paying $165,000 to correct it. Far-fetched, away from here.
The benefits of being early adopters.
I mean,
The benefit of being an early adopter.
yeah, right.
It was part of an overall plan. The majority of the plan did work out. The functionality of these intakes looked better on paper. We saw that they were hard to maintain. We corrected the problem and are moving forward.
Right, for $165,000.
I would so move, Your Honor.
Second.
Clerk will call the roll.
Star.
Aye.
Yeager.
Aye.
Friesman.
Aye.
Hammond.
Aye.
Malero.
Aye.
Resolution 91-16 is approved. Miscellaneous correspondence.
None, Your Honor.
City Attorney's report. City Clerk's report.
We will have a special meeting on November 28th prior to our planning session at 7. And just a reminder that City Hall will be closed Thursday and Friday this week for Thanksgiving. So happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Okay, thank you. City Administrator's report.
Yeah, just to let everybody know that we're on the 312 South Johnson property. We're still waiting on feedback from the participants there to see how that could possibly move forward with getting that nuisance abated. Next week, we'll be meeting with the EPA. They're coming to town to review and look at wastewater mitigation efforts and things that they can maybe help out with as we work towards long-term planning. So we see some benefit there coming from the fact that we're going to be looking at a wastewater treatment plant, maybe looking at additional assistance with upgrading some of our lift stations, slip lining projects, things of that nature. There's a lot of things that they could potentially help us out with technical assistance and possibly some additional funding. So we'll be touring with them on Wednesday. On Tuesday, the city's receiving a Main Street grant award, part of their challenge grant. So I'll be attending that with Mark Wicks on Tuesday. I can't tell you what it's about yet because we're sworn to secrecy, but it's something we've been working towards, and it'll be something that's beneficial to us. So we'll look forward to hearing that official announcement. Other than that, that is all I have.
Board, Commissioner, Committee reports. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We're adjourned.
Steve went.
Have
Have a good